Hello, my beautiful people. My name is Kristen. Thank you for stopping by my channel. Today I have my bookish video. I have a lot of book videos that I'm kind of interested in filming, but I wanted to go ahead and do one on Valentine/romance, which is not my normal favorite genre of book. In general, I consider myself pretty selective about romance books. I do appreciate an occasional romance books. I kind of feel like they're a cleanse my palate kind of genre. Like if you've had something really intense or really, scary, suspenseful, that kind of thing, then a romance is just so predictable, right? And there's something nice and pleasant knowing that there will almost always be at least somewhat of a happy ending, right? So I do have a Valentine's tag. I can't find the original owner or creator, if you will, but if you type that in, you can find several others. So I am not the original creator, and there's only 8. So here are my thoughts on these romance questions. What is your favorite basic romance plot? So my favorite basic romance plot is a plot that has growth for the characters. Like usually at the beginning, they might get along as friends or they don't even like each other at all because of something in particular, but they grow as people or they have to go through a difficult life circumstance and that stretches them and that allows them to see the good in each other. I particularly think of like Elin Hilderbrand's series Winter Street. I talked about that in a couple recent reviews, just talking about the growth of the characters and how life kind of came upon them and they had to grow and kind of stretch themselves as people as well as their relationships. Number 2, your favorite classic romance. That definitely has to be Pride and Prejudice. I love my Elizabeth, Mr. Darcy. And again, that's that circumstance where they start out with preconceived notions of one another and have pride and prejudice that get in the way, and they have to work through that and kind of grow into stronger, better people and recognize that and draw that out of one another as the book goes along. Number 3, your feel-good romance. Now, when I want a feel-good romance, I think those of you who followed me know I go to Nora Roberts. Nora Roberts is predictable. It's almost annoying, and it's almost that whole romance thing that I dislike, where you've got kind of the strong, angry woman and the man who comes along and is overpowering and kind of forces sometimes his life into hers, and she resists, and then something happens where they end up becoming equal. And it's an enjoyable, predictable romp, although sometimes it puzzles me, like what's up with that, right? So I don't know. I will say, if I'm more specific, if you're looking for a recommendation, Nora Roberts, the Jewels of the Sun, there's a trilogy that actually it's set in Ireland and it has fairies and magic involved, as well as a good classic romance. So I'll go with that one. Number 4, the sad romance. The one that came to mind immediately was Nicholas Sparks' Longest Ride, and it is based on a true story. I remember looking that up, and that just made me cry all the harder. And it's one of those, not necessarily where it's tragic the whole way through and everybody's dead at the end. It's not like the Romeo Juliet kind of sad. It's just sad in that poignant, life beautiful kind of way. And it was he was like a rodeo bull rider, and she was like a more sophisticated art connoisseur, and so very different culture. It was fun, and I going through a box of Kleenex would be an exaggeration, but I went through a lot of Kleenex reading that book. I just guess I was in the right mood for it. Favorite genre to add a romance to? Historical fiction. Definitely historical fiction. I think romance and relationships are part of history, and I love having, especially when it's based in some part of history, like historical true, this was a relationship that happened. I really, really appreciate that. I don't need romance in my thrillers or, all my different genres. That's fine, take it or leave it. But historical fiction, I really appreciate a little romance. Least favorite romance of all time. Really, I'm just picky about them, and most of them, any romance that has a cover with the muscular man and the sweeping hair, I don't care if it's a really good book. I just no. Just if that's how you're gonna present it, that's just no. Favorite literary couple of all time. Okay, so my favorite literary couple of all time is definitely King Aragorn and Arwen, the elf princess in Lord of the Rings. I am just the holy grail of all relationships. Just, it has human and magical and enduring and lasting and sacrificing and striving for the cause and always honoring one another. And it kind of goes into the last question. It says, if you can have one literary significant other, who would you pick? So of course, it would be a give me putt to say King Aragorn, right? And actually, if there was a question in another quiz or whatever that said, if you had a movie star that could play you, to portray your life, I'd pick Liv Tyler, of course. Hello. This is my ultimate fantasy perfect life. And or if I can't pick him, the one I would have picked is from the book one, which is, I don't know that it's classified as a romance as much as just I think it's listed under like even metaphysical or whatever. It's really a trippy story by Richard Bach, and I just was fascinated by him in my 20s, and it's supposedly almost autobiographical, where they're writing about themselves. And so I would have thought that he was the most amazing man in the entire universe. And if I was in my 20s picking somebody and I read in a book and wanted to have a relationship, I would have picked him because he exists, unlike King Aragorn. But the reality is, when you look at his life, he ended up divorcing her and having really poor character, having an affair, going off. I don't even think he's with the woman that he had the affair with. He's not a good character. Like his person is not good. If you look at Nicholas Sparks, he's divorced, y'all. He wrote The Notebook. He wrote all these beautiful romances that we love. But these authors who come up with these things that in our mind we think are the perfect things, that if we could pick, this is what we'd pick. No, the people who are coming up with it even aren't able to bring about that kind of reality. And so on Valentine's, I think it's important that we embrace, back to what I was saying, it's about being human and vulnerable with one another, being able to say I'm sorry, being able to say this is our shortcomings, this is the struggle, these are the things that are kind of yucky and gross. Hello, we've all been quarantined together. It's like, if relationships survive this, it's like, this is toothpaste all over the sink and dishes piled up in the kitchen and real life going on, right? It's not a fantasy and something that we can just take on a whim, which is funny because I also am trying not to talk about the romance book that I read this month for Valentine's, but please come back for my book reviews because I've got a great romance that I loved that I'm going to talk about. So, but the reality is relationships are work. And we have to make decisions and commitments every day to our relationships. And so I go back to, I think that's why my favorite romance books are the ones, in fact, where there is hardships either from the outside or from within eternally, and people are gracious and have communication and go and slay the demons together or problem solve together, and they come out together, not perfect, not with everything made fairy tale, but with a respect and love for one another, that they go into the future just a little better off for one another as partners and as people in general, because somebody that you are with in a romantic situation should make you the best version of yourself. That's ultimately what it is, and that should be our goal when we're with somebody, is to allow them to be the best version of themselves, not to change them. That doesn't work, y'all. But to enhance. And I hope that each of you this Valentine's has that kind of relationship, whether it's romantic or whether it's a friendship, or just an encouragement of even coworkers, right? Just building each other up, pushing each other on to be the best that we can, just to be a little bit kinder, a little bit more patient this day, just a little bit more romantic. So happy Valentine's, happy romance reading. If you have any recommendations for me, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Peace, y'all.